Hello and welcome to another edition of The Last Review. This is your host, Sergey Fenswick, not my real name. And in this episode, we are going to look at the Grayzone and how this group of journalists may have the most reliable investigative reporting out there. Are they on a Ukrainian kill list? How are these guys described as the most prolific spreaders of misinformation? Good and honest at their job. Let's dig in.
Hello, Max Blumenthal, the Grayzone. My pronouns are Trump Russia. Lockheed Martin has been identified as one of the most diverse employers in the country, and I was wondering if you knew by any chance how many products or weapons produced by Lockheed Martin, diversity and equity and inclusion bombs have been dropped on the children of Palestine, Yemen, or Syria.
Bent on overthrowing the U.S. government. And members of Congress who were sympathetic.
Rachel, this speech is boring and paranoid. Can you explain why you promoted the Steele? Why did you promote the Steele dossier, which has been proven to be a lie? Why did you promote the lie of Russian bounties?
Come on, let's go.
Why are we doing this? Why are we tempting nuclear annihilation by flooding Ukraine with advanced weapons and sabotaging negotiations at every turn? We've been told by people like Senator Dick Durbin that Ukraine is literally in a battle for freedom and democracy itself. And therefore, anyone who opposes military aid to Ukraine opposes the very defense of democracy, according to this logic. So where's the democracy in Vladimir Zelensky's decision to ban opposition parties, to criminalize the media outlets of his legitimate political opponents, to jail his top political rival and his deputies, to raid Orthodox churches and jail clergymen? Where is the democracy in the Ukrainian government's imprisonment of Gonzalo Lira, an American citizen, simply for challenging the official narrative of Ukraine's war? And where is the democracy in Zelensky's recent decision to suspend elections in 2024 on the grounds that martial law has been declared? The answer is that Ukrainian democracy is harder to find these days than that country's commander-in-chief, Valery Zaluzhny.
Max Blumenthal, founder and editor of The Grayzone, has never backed down from a metaphorical or rhetorical fight, be it crashing the arms industry-sponsored TrumanCon in D.C., or speaking at the Rage Against the War Machine rally earlier this year, or even addressing and informing the UN about the war in Ukraine. Unlike the current crop of hot-taking talking heads that dominate shows labeling themselves as news, Blumenthal and his group of dedicated journalists at the Grayzone are a throwback to the glamorized, dogged reporter archetype of the 1970s and 80s. The Grayzone describes themselves as an independent news organization dedicated to original investigative journalism and analysis on politics and empire. In other words, they are monitoring and investigating the domestic and foreign deep state, documenting military-industrial complex-related events and evidence never shown on TV. It is these events and actions of political rot that cause rut, enabling the status quo every step of the way. It's why Republicans can shout fake news and defend the intelligence of George W. Bush, and then Democrats can shout disinformation and defend the intelligence of Joe Biden. Yet no one wants to admit they're being hypocritical or willing to change their ways. All of this is manufactured arguments determined to keep us at a deadlock. Ultimately, power will not admit vulnerability nor relinquish its power. Voices of dissent can be waved off or shouted down, but voices with receipts, hard evidence of corruption or violence, need to have action taken against them. The Grayzone has done its job so well with providing these receipts that it itself has become a target.
Myself and another Grayzone colleague, Anya Parampil, we just apparently got added to what's called the Ukraine kill list. This comes from the Ukrainian government, right? This list?
Yeah, I mean, the Ukrainian Interior Ministry supports this list. Someone who's listed as an advisor to the Ukrainian Interior Ministry, his name is Anton Gerashenko, and is an open supporter of this website, and he participates in the blacklisting, and he helps propagate, names. If someone gets added to it, he'll put it out on his own Telegram channels and the Interior Ministry's channels. And it definitely works with the Ukrainian SBU security services.
Both Anya and I were recently added to it. I don't know why you didn't make it, Max. You must be feeling a little left out. But
I do. I mean, that was my first reaction.
Yeah, there's Anya.
They at least chose a decent photo of her.
Yeah. There it is. So there's Anya on the list. Let's see here. So that was Anya's. And this is mine. You know what's funny about mine is, okay, so
see your photo isn't as
well, my photo's not very flattering, but
they are also talked about as if they're a gateway drug to some dangerous truth.
What we're going to do about my sister. She was a big Majority Report fan, back Air America, and that's how long I've been listening. But she's drifted astray. She got a crush on Matt Taibbi, and so now she's like, I've noticed for a while, my mom and I have noticed, like, the things she says, we just kind of look at each other and we're like, what? But she thinks, she's talking about all the big thing with the Twitter files and how it's going to reveal all this stuff. And
okay, and did she give you, like, I mean, I can guess what she's at least what the gist of it is. She's saying that, like, wokeness has created an authoritarianism on the left.
Yeah.
Is that what she's saying? Yeah,
that's it, right on the nose. That's what she's saying.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting though is, like, it started out as if, like, the Taibbi, Greenwald, Grayzone, they started out by saying, like, we're actually, like, the true left. And then
she sent me clips from the Grayzone. I was like, what?
Really? Who would have guessed that the no-frills, straightforward reporting would come under such fire? The reactions are truly the stuff of the movies. In the last year alone, Grayzone journalists Aaron Mate and Anya Parampil were put on what amounts to be a Ukrainian-condoned and published kill list known as Mirotoverits. Kit Clarenberg was detained by British police after arriving in the UK and interrogated for 5 hours on his knowledge about Russia. Even the UK Guardian, part of the mainstream UK media, has referred to Mate as the most prolific spreader of disinformation. Much of the violent backlash is due to the Grayzone's coverage of the Ukrainian-Russian war, the in-the-field investigations, and the research that not only shows how this war could have been avoided, but also how corrupt domestic governments and foreign interference prevented peace talks between those two countries. This has drawn the ire of governments and government-friendly media alike. If these reactions weren't extraordinary enough, not to be outdone by those across the Atlantic, the FBI, at the behest of the Ukrainian government, tried to coerce Twitter to block Aaron Mate for disinformation. Why wouldn't they be targeted, though, when they continue to expose so much? They took on Bellingcat, which was a venerated leader in international reporting, and exposed them for all of their government influences, being in the pocket of the European Union and the CIA. Whether they were trying to deny Syrian whistleblowers while being funded by the same outfits supporting Al-Qaeda, or promoting war efforts and attacks on St. Petersburg. We as an audience know that, at the very least, Bellingcat is now compromised in their reporting. The Grayzone went on to expose the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, yes, that's a real organization's name, as being a NATO state contractor, pushing flimsy studies or unvetted data as a basis to strike down others as misinformed or threats that must be censored. They are currently informing the BBC, among others, making it important that light is shed on them too. The Grayzone then put a spotlight on the National Endowment for Democracy. Blumenthal and Alexander Rubinstein were firsthand able to interview their VP of Communications and poked holes in their policy while citing influence peddling to places like Nicaragua, Venezuela, and the Ukraine that she couldn't deny in what was an embarrassingly revealing interview. So now, due to their work, we now know that if any of these aforementioned organizations are cited as an authority or source in a story, just like they have been in the Washington Post or CBS's 60 Minutes, we know to question it. The Grayzone has effectively shown a light on dishonest actors and corruption. The team at the Grayzone, however, have had honest actors who can be pretty entertaining. Audiences are in for a bit of a surprise when they see how these fact-driven reporters actually do engage audiences on their weekly live streams, their website, and their Patreon. Blumenthal, the Rachel Maddow heckler, has an unmistakable deadpan humor and sees news items from many, and sometimes frighteningly too many, angles. Parampil is unfiltered and fearless in both her reporting and on her guest appearances on other shows and on social media. She tends to be the first to say what we're all thinking. Mate, as stated in episode 3 of the last review, may be the most accurate and respected reporter anywhere, with a fantastic long-term memory, measured journalistic takes, and a willingness to do the legwork. He's powerfully debunked Russiagate narrative for years and has been on long victory laps while receiving awards for his coverage. Together, along with several other great reporters, they let us know about the corruption, the atrocities, and the real-world consequences of international meddling and subterfuge. It's a highly specific and specialized scope and recording, but it's very much needed. No outfit or group is perfect, and the Grayzone is no different. Are there times when they have to cover the smoke instead of the fire? Yes. There are a lot of links and correlations that they find, but causation or concrete corruption can't be substantiated. But to be fair, it's sometimes impossible because some things stay off the books or are off the record forever. Another vulnerability of the Grayzone may be the negative tone on U.S. diplomacy in comparison to similar nations. However, Grayzone is just as critical of Europe and NATO. And when you look at the track record and results of the last 20 years of war, we're going to have to be honest. The U.S. doesn't come out looking all that great. Still, I do hope the Grayzone does find some restraint, that when a NATO opponent does something wrong, that they can acknowledge it without a qualifier or an immediate follow-up. Sometimes, there are no good guys. Sometimes, it's not black and white. Sometimes, it's nothing but gray. Because of that, we need the Grayzone. They keep us measured and even-keeled. They keep us honest. They are prolific spreaders of good, original reporting. A rarity these days. They're not going to give you viral moments and giant releases of endorphins. Instead, they're going to give you power through knowledge as they examine and expose the powerful and the corruption within. Thank you for watching or listening. Please like and subscribe and share this video with as many people as you want. I have a developing website and social media accounts. You can subscribe to those too. Thank you for that.